You probably heard that. We record these meetings so that any of your neighbors, if they were unable to make it, they can find this same recording on our website and find out the same information about the project. So, afterwards, if you talk to your neighbors and they want to know more about it, you can certainly direct them towards NDOT's website and they can find it there. But again, I'm Amy Birch, and so we're here to talk about the Westboro Drive traffic calming project. I appreciate everyone joining. We have just some housekeeping. We have a chat box. If you want to put questions in the chat box, you certainly can. I'll be monitoring that, as well as if you have questions as we go along, you can unmute yourself and ask those. And I think we can handle that there with this size group. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us. Let's see. So we have a short agenda here to talk about. I'm going to give some background information about the program, the traffic calming program that NDOT has. And then we'll have opportunity to discuss problems and solutions on your street. We have an Engage Nashville page, which was on the postcard announcement for this meeting. So that's the same QR code there. So we've been able to, even before this meeting, see and hear from some of you and your neighbors about their experience on Westboro and what they would like to see possibly. And then we'll talk about the traffic calming toolbox, the measures that we use to slow vehicular traffic down. And then we have a very preliminary design concept. It's really meant to start the discussion process and get some feedback from the neighborhood about what we've think could work on the street. And then we'll discuss next steps in the project. So let's start with that background information about traffic calming. We call this the Neighborhood Street Traffic Calming Program, and we address residential streets specifically, and it's physical solutions to encourage drivers to slow down as they drive on the street for the length of the street. And we're specifically targeting speed reduction with this program. We often talk about the 3 E's of traffic calming being education, enforcement, and engineering. Education, part of that is the meetings that we do and informing the public about traffic calming and the reason and desires to drive slowly. Enforcement, that's the job that the police department does. However, we know that they can't be monitoring all the streets in the city of Nashville 24 hours a day. And so NDOT's program specifically focuses on the engineering. How do we modify the street to encourage slower speeds? This infographic is showing the correlation between safety and speed. So the speeds at 25 miles per hour, a pedestrian, if hit by a vehicle going 25 miles per hour, has an 89% chance of survival. As speed goes up, the chance of survival goes down pretty dramatically. So at 45 miles per hour, chance of survival for pedestrian goes down to 35%. So it's pretty obvious, the correlation between speed and severity of a crash. But there's also something else to speak about, speed, vehicle speed. So at slower speeds, it's easier to avoid a crash altogether because you have a greater time to react, see something in the road, react and slow down and stop. And also the cone of vision is wider, so you can see further outside of the roadway and anticipate any thing that may be approaching other vehicles or pedestrians and so forth. So all great reasons why slower speeds, especially on these residential streets, is important. So this is a neighborhood street application program, meaning that residents on the street apply for the program. And so just to illustrate, we have such great demand for this program and asks we've had in our last round as of March 2025. We had over 600 neighborhood streets that had requested traffic calming. And from those 600 streets, the program NDOT selected 25 neighborhood streets for this round and this selection. And this map is taken from our online tracker map, just illustrating the lines or where streets have either applied for traffic calming, been selected in somewhere in the program or have been installed. And then outside of the traffic calming program, we have, we like to plug the hub. If you're not familiar with the hub, it's just a really great resource that Metro has and allows residents to make requests for issues where maybe your trash didn't get picked up or the street lights out, sign's been knocked down. It's just a really great way to reach the right department and the right person to get a resolution. So you can do that by dialing 311 on your phone, or the website is hub.nashville.gov, and there's even a smart app, an app you can download to your smartphone. But now I want to go back to traffic calming. I mentioned that we had 600 streets or more that had applied for traffic calming, but we selected 25, and those were scored. All the streets were scored, and the top 25 were the ones that were selected. So Westboro being one of those streets. And we do that based on this prioritization methodology, and it's data-driven. We collect the vehicle speed and volume on all the streets that have requested traffic calming, and then we score them based on the speeds and volumes that we collected. And speed is worth 45% of the score. Volume is worth 25% of the score. And then we also look at things like non-driver accommodations. So if there's a lack of sidewalks, or there are bike lanes on the street or greenways nearby or bus routes and bus stops nearby or on that street, then that goes into that 15% of the score. We also look back at 10 years worth of data and find out whether there's been a pedestrian or bicycle crash on the street during that time, and that's worth 10% of the score. And we also look at trip destinations. So are there parks or schools nearby, places close to the street or along the street that that we would expect people to be wanting to walk to and from. So it's out of 100 points. And so the streets that scored in the top 25 were the streets that were selected, and Westboro being one of those. So let's talk about a little bit of the data that we've collected on Westboro Drive that went into the selection. This street, we measured the 85th percentile speed to be 33 miles per hour. It is a street that has a 30 mile per hour speed limit, but I want to explain what the 85th percentile speed is. That is the speed that 85% of the traffic over the course of the day was going 33 miles per hour or below. And it means that 15% of the traffic was going above 33 miles per hour. Then the volume of traffic, this is the two-way traffic over the course of a 24-hour period, was measured at around 3,500 vehicles per day. And then, as you know, it's a fairly narrow street, about 22 feet wide. It has centerline striping. There's not any sidewalks, so that went into that scoring process. And this street is classified as a collector avenue, which essentially means it's a residential street, of course, but it kind of collects traffic from smaller side streets and connects that traffic to larger streets like Charlotte Avenue and Robertson Avenue. And so this is a map showing the limits of our project. So we're talking about Westboro Drive between Charlotte Avenue and Robertson Avenue to the north. And this is a snapshot taken from our online tracker map that I mentioned earlier. And I have a legend over on the left, but essentially those lines are depicting what phase or stage a street is in the traffic calming program. So those kind of fuchsia pink lines are where we have an application on file, but the street hasn't been selected. Some of those green lines, like Westboro, is in the meeting and design phase. And then we have the streets that are identified in the blue dotted lines. Those are streets where they've gone through the process. Traffic calming has been installed, and those have vertical measures on them. And we'll talk more about what those vertical measures are. So I'm going to talk about our program toolkit. Seeing some questions before I jump into this section of the program. I'm just going to answer these. Asking about programs to apply for sidewalks. That is something that you can certainly put into the hub to request sidewalks, but that's not part of this program. It goes into our process of whether or not the scoring process of the traffic calming program, but this program, unfortunately, cannot, that's not one of our tools that I'm going to be talking about. We're not able to do sidewalks. It's a much bigger project, and so it's under a different program. And then, yeah, just some concurrence on that. All right, so that's all the questions I see right now. So I'll move into our toolkit. I think if you live on the street, you're probably pretty familiar with one of the tools that we, yes, I'll put that in at the end, asking for the hub email address or the hub website. But anyway, speed cushions are vertical devices. That's what we call them, that we install into the roadway. And as you can see in these pictures, we can configure them in multiple different ways, different striping on them, different number across, and that's dependent on how wide the street is and what the other conditions are, whether it has a bike lane or not. So sometimes when we have a bike lane adjacent to a street where we're putting cushions, we'll incorporate the use of those white delineator posts that you see in the bottom right picture to keep drivers from trying to drive around the speed cushion into the bike lane. We always pair these with series or warning signs that give drivers the warning as they approach that there's a speed cushion, either several in advance or right at the device location. These are 3 inches high, so you can kind of see that from the picture in the bottom left, and they're 6 feet wide, each device, and then they come in various lengths, and we select those lengths depending on the characteristics of the street and the context of the neighborhood around it. But NDOT uses the speed cushions for one reason, because of how easy they are to implement and install. They're modular, so we can configure them in many different ways, but they also have a reduced impact to emergency vehicles because emergency vehicles have a slightly wider wheelbase than passenger cars, so they are able to kind of straddle the cushions as they drive over them. And so when we install these, we pay attention to a lot of things like the grade on the street. We can't install them on steep hills, or in tight curves. We can't install them there, but we're also looking at placement of driveways. We don't want to put them right at the back of someone's driveway or too close to someone's driveway. That makes that a really difficult way to turn in and out of your driveway or back in and out of your driveway. The other thing is we will put them in a series. So we'll space each set of speed cushions anywhere from 300 to 600 feet apart. And that is so that we are able to achieve a consistent speed along the street. If we just put one set and, we have a long distance between or to the next stop sign or something like that, we would expect drivers to maybe slow down just right at that one location and then try to make up speed or pick up speed in between. So that's why there's kind of a series of them placed. Speed tables, these are also similar to the same material as the speed cushions, similar effects as the speed cushions, but as you can see, they don't have the gaps that allow the emergency vehicles to straddle the cushions. And so we don't use them as often because they do have a little bit more impact to emergency response, but they span the whole width of the street. And just like the cushions, we have different striping patterns that can come on them so that they're visible for drivers. So NDOT has done some before and after study on some of these types of devices and installations, and determined that they are very effective and achieving the goals. The graph on the left is showing a comparison of the average speed before and after speed cushions were installed. And the before speed, average speed for these 6 streets that we studied was 31 miles per hour. And then after the cushions were installed, the average speed went down to 22 miles per hour. And then the graph on the right is a comparison of the 85th percentile speed. And again, that's the speed at which 85% of the traffic is going that speed or below. So that before installation average was 37 miles per hour. And then after the install, the speed went down to 25 miles per hour. Another tool in our toolbox that we use quite a bit are radar feedback signs. These are often used in places where the vertical devices aren't applicable or not the right tool. These signs show a driver their speed as they approach the sign. And they can be effective in reminding drivers of what their speed is, showing that to them, and achieving some slowdown there. So, places like on a steep downhill, sometimes we'll incorporate them there, or on streets that have volume that is higher than where we can install vertical devices, or on streets where that's just the preferred tool by the neighborhood. That happens too. So these will, it depends on how long the street is. We may install one set, 2 sets, it just depends. Then we have pavement narrowing. A lot of streets in Nashville may not have any sidewalk. They might not have any striping at all and just have really wide pavement widths. We see pavement widths 30 feet wide on what is really a smaller street or serving just a few homes. And so we can incorporate some white edge line striping to narrow the travel way. It can kind of create a little shoulder on the side that might increase comfort for pedestrians, but it visually narrows the driving area for cars and kind of achieves a little bit of slower driving. Bulb outs are intersection treatments where we will narrow an intersection and the crossing distance for pedestrians. It's more often used in more urban settings where we have just really wide radii, like you see in that picture kind of in the middle. And so by tightening the radius of an intersection, turning movements are slower. And this is done with paint and those white flexible delineator posts. It just makes drivers feel a little more constrained, so they slow down. Chicanes are a tool. We don't use it as often because there's we have to have kind of all the right street characteristics in order to incorporate something like this. But what it is essentially is adding curvature to an otherwise straight street. And we do this with paint and sometimes with offsetting the parking from side to side. So a street like this is Kenner Avenue and Fairfax Avenue. Fairfax near like Hillsborough Village, if you've driven over in that area. So the parking kind of alternates sides of the street, and so it kind of puts more of a zigzag in the street with kind of some quick curves. But we have to have the right width, the right scenario to be able to incorporate that. Okay, and then traffic circles is another intersection treatment. Essentially, it's a circular island like you see here in the picture that we put in the middle of an intersection, and it creates a horizontal deflection for vehicles to navigate around, so they slow down as they go through the intersection. Most of the time when these are installed at intersections, the traffic control doesn't change, meaning if it's a stop sign on just one approach or two approaches and there's one main street that doesn't stop, that continues that way. But because there's an island in the center, the traffic that's at free flow still has to navigate around the island. And they're treated like roundabouts in that you drive counterclockwise around them. Okay. I'm going to pause here and just review some more questions, see if there's anything I need to answer here about the sidewalks. A question about the how do we stop the larger trucks and pickup trucks and industrial vehicles from straddling the speed cushion? That's a good question. You know, they do still touch the cushion, so there is some effect there, and it is depending on the type of vehicle. But pickup trucks still have more of a passenger car width, and so those are still affected by the speed cushions. And sometimes we will incorporate some flexible delineator post to keep them from veering from one side to the other. So to really keep them centered on the cushion. Okay. All right. Narrow striping and feedback signs were installed on Robertson, and comment is that there hasn't had much impact on drivers. We have some comments about is a new stop sign an option? No, not through this program. That is something you can request through the hub, and NDOT's traffic engineers would review that. But it's not a tool in our toolbox. There's a comment here saying that the road is too narrow for pavement markings. Okay. And I would say that because the street is about 22 feet wide, that is kind of limiting on having any edge lines be very effective there. All right. Okay. Well, we have, like I said at the beginning, does someone have a question? No. Okay. We do have a draft, just preliminary plan to show you all based on our look and review of the road and the data collected and so forth. But this is meant to just generate feedback from the neighborhood. So it's not a, hey, this is what we're definitely doing. We're showing this to get the conversation going. There we go.
Yeah. Hey, I had a question. I was wondering if there's any empirical data showing that these slow cars down, because in my experience, what I've seen is people speed up in between the humps and then they'll try to swerve in between to avoid going over the humps with their car. That's just what I've seen. I didn't know if there's any research out there on it.
Yes, that sort of goes into the point about how close we put each set. And we obviously don't want to make it so cumbersome that people that live on the street are having to go over several of these several times a day. But it does come into play when we're talking about the spacing. So if they're, too far apart, absolutely, or some drivers will pick up speed between, but if they see the next set, down the road a bit, the idea is that there's no need to do that because then they have to slow back down. And then, yes, we have experienced where drivers will try to drive around them or put one wheel on and one wheel off of the cushion. I'll say that is in my experience, that's a more uncomfortable ride to not go straight over the cushion. But people do that. And so we've been strategic in where we place those warning signs to keep drivers from trying to drive off the road to avoid the cushion and try to get them to drive directly over them. So let me orient you here. North is kind of up and to the left of your screen. So Robertson Avenue is on the left side of the screen, showing that stop sign there. And then on the right side of the screen where you see the traffic signal symbol, that's the intersection at Charlotte Avenue. And so the pink line is obviously Westboro Drive. This is about a mile section. It's almost exactly 1 mile between Charlotte and Robertson. And so we're also showing where the existing always stops are because we factor that into the placement of speed cushions. And so there is an always stop at O'Brien on the south side of I-40, and then there is a always stop at Thunderbird Drive on the north side of Patton Avenue. And then, as you know, there's a little bit of curvature and both vertical and horizontal, basically around the Bagley Shop Drive area, I believe. So that's where we have incorporated into this proposal a radar feedback signs in each direction because we can't put any cushions in that area, but understand that that's an area of concern on the street because of the curvature and the tendency for cars to maybe or people to drive faster down a hill and so forth. So with this spacing, so the rest of the trapezoid Cs are showing speed cushion possible locations. And so we tried to space them fairly evenly, around 500 feet apart. I think the ones between Thunderbird and I-40 are maybe might be just a tad closer than that. But we're, trying to there's some limited areas where we can't put them in because of or we couldn't put them in because of driveway spacing. There's some dense driveway spacing along the street. So I will maybe pause there, but so it's essentially 6 sets of cushions, and they would, because of the width of the street and the striping of the street, they would lay in the road, kind of like that picture that you see there at the top right, with a sign associated with it. So, and if you have questions, feel free to unmute and ask those. I'm also going to be monitoring this chat. See if there's anything else. I see a hand raise from Molly. There you are.
Hi.
Yeah, there you are.
You hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Hi, neighbors. My name is Molly Wright. I live at 517 Westboro Drive. So I am close to Patton, in between Thunderbird, close to the highway. And I, in my years of living here, have already had 4 accidents in my yard, directly across from my yard, where multiple mailboxes were taken out. Because at the top of Charlotte Pike, and this is just to give a little bit of an experience from someone who has been impacted by actual physical accidents. I also have a 2-year-old daughter, a dog, so this is semi-important to me. People go to the top of Charlotte Pike, come down, come to that first stop sign, and then right before they go underneath the highway, they crank up the speed. They like the sound of their car under the highway, and they, every single day, take off down that street. There's literally someone doing it right now. That was kind of funny. And they just take off down the street. Sometimes they stop at that stop sign. Sometimes they blow right through it, the one that intersects at Thunderbird. But going back to the accidents, there's been multiple crashes directly in front of my house and directly across the street. One of the worst was a person came flying down, took out 4 mailboxes, narrowly missed my tree, went over the curb, crossed the lanes, and went into the neighbors across the street's yard, narrowly missing their driveway. On top of those things, daily, when we just go to take a walk to the park or anywhere in the neighborhood for that matter, it's extremely dangerous. You have people flying up on you at any point. One time, someone actually intentionally played chicken with me and my dog. I thought they were going to hit us. My husband and my daughter were directly in front of us on that walk as well. And so I know the speed bumps are annoying. I know people have a lot of feelings about them, but I just wanted to share a little bit about our experience having actual physical accidents and genuine danger in front of our home and to us as we try to just exist in the neighborhood. So I just wanted to sort of share a little bit of that with everybody so they maybe had a perspective from somebody who has had actual physical accidents in their yard.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I see a hand raise from Jenny and Craig.
Hi there, and thanks, Molly, for sharing that. I put this in the chat, but I just wanted to go ahead and verbally say this. So we're right by that first cushion that's recommended close to Robertson. And our concern is that we frequently use trailers attached to our vehicles and back in and out of our driveway with that. And we'd be really concerned about it being too close where we wouldn't be able to back into our driveway. So do we have a say in where that goes?
Yes.
And we're also concerned about really being on this end of Westboro. Within those first 5 houses is where people start speeding up. They're already speeding past our house by the time it gets to that other area, and people are walking their dogs and all of that through that area. So I think that first one needs to be reassessed on the placement.
You're saying closer to Robertson?
Correct.
Yeah, we can look at that. Driveway density can be a problem because we have to place them a certain number of feet away from each driveway. So that does become a kind of a a design issue, but we can certainly look at that and see if we can make it a little closer to Robertson. And if you, I have my email address at the end of this slide deck, and you can email me your address about, you know, where that is, and we can try to factor that into the consideration of the location of the cushion and your trailer and that sort of thing. So, yep. Let's see. I see some more.
How many feet from the driveway is it supposed to be? Sorry, that's a follow-up question.
We try for 15 feet from a driveway.
Okay.
Sometimes they're a little closer, but 15 feet is
Okay.
definitely a goal, and we don't go less than 10.
Great. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
You're welcome. I saw Alex's hand up next, I think.
Yes. Hi, Alex LaCava here. I live at 629 Westboro Drive, kind of right at the bend by the Magnet Shop. We've lived in this home for about 4 years now, and we have had 2 incidents. We had one car come through the guardrail right up next to our driveway. Unfortunately, the guardrail held and prevented the driver from entering our property. But last year, we had a driver, I believe a drunk driver in the middle of the night, split right past the guardrail, drove through our yard, and hit both of our vehicles, totaled both of them. It happened in the middle of the night, so when I woke up the next morning and came out and surveyed the situation, I had no idea what happened initially, but there were tire tracks in our yard. I mean, it was a mess. And looking at the scene of the accident, if the car had veered slightly left instead of slightly right, it would have driven straight through our bedroom. You know, in my eyes, speed bumps at least slow down those people. You know, you were talking about that 85th percentile, and I made a comment about it, but the 85th percentile of drivers don't really concern me. You know, the drivers that really concern me are the drivers that are in that 99th plus percentile. And with the amount of traffic we have, you said about 3,500 vehicles a day. You have dozens of vehicles every day that are going in excess of 45 to 50 miles an hour around a road with a pretty severe bend in it. You know, especially when the weather's bad, there's a lot of potential for those cars to veer off the road. So in my eyes, you know, I don't think placing radar signs is a sufficient solution for the entirety of the road. You know, I truly do believe that speed bumps are the only way to get it under control.
Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
I agree. I
information.
agree with that.
Great. Okay, let's see. Sam, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah. I just wanted to. So I'm on Alamo Place between, between Westboro and Crowley, and I'm surprised honestly that stop signs aren't in the toolkit for this. And I guess I understand it lives in a different place, but I'm surprised that it wouldn't be something that you could use. People fly down Westboro and take the turn really sharply into us on Alamo Place, and we get, you know, fast cars on Alamo because there's no stop sign there. I think that would be a terrific way to slow down the traffic in this section without needing a cushion, although I think we're going to need cushions, certainly, as we've talked about, you know, in other parts of this, in other parts here. But I'll put in a request for that separately. But I'm surprised that that's not part of the tool here, because it can break up the speed, you know, knowing that you've got to slow down, or you can't, you know, gas all the way from Thunderbird all the way to Robertson. So that I think could be an important piece.
Thank you for your comment. Yeah, always stops are not part of the toolbox because there are certain criteria that need to be met in order to install an always stop. And part of that is because we don't want them to be ignored, which can happen when they're installed for reasons of slowing people down as opposed to controlling the traffic and alternating the right of way. But I completely understand where you're coming from on that.
Got it. Are there, can you tell me some of the criteria that I would need to satisfy? Like if I need to be armed with some data or need the city to, need other information that they need to.
It's more about, there are different ways to warrant an always stop, but volume is certainly one of them. Whether or not there have been crashes at the intersection is also part of that.
Okay.
And if there's a visibility issue or something like that. But if there's a visibility issue and there's something that can be done, like trimming back shrubs or something, that would be done first. But okay, I think Jeff, you've had your hand raised for a bit.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. First of all, appreciate this presentation, and also just to my that is in line as well. So I was on the north end of Westboro 677, and again, I think my concern definitely is that top 5%. Right? It's a speed racers, people who are gunning at their cars as fast as they can to see how fast they can go. And so I do think that while speed cushions are annoying, I definitely am in full support of them for this particular stretch of the road. You mentioned tree trimming though too. There is one section that's close to that north end, north of the church that's on the street. Westboro, the church. It's not overgrown by the shoulder.
Jeff, you are kind of cutting out. I'm not able to hear you all that well. I think you're asking about the church at the north end. In this area, is that? Yeah, I'm sorry. We're only getting like every other syllable or something. So sorry about that. I'm not able to hear you, but if you could put it in the chat, and I also have an email at the end of this, you can certainly email me. Okay, anybody else? I think we might have hit everybody's, and I'm going to just take a quick glance at the.
Amy, I've had my hand up, Elaine.
Oh, Elaine, I'm sorry.
All right, so I just want to agree with what Jenny said about that first speed cushion. And full disclosure, I live on James, and we got traffic calming a year ago, last July. And anybody who lives in the neighborhood can give you lots of feedback about the traffic. But I agree with Jenny, when they stop at the stop sign at James and Robertson, and then they fly across Robertson, even though we now have a four-way stop, which took 4 years to get. But anyway, they pick up speed and they fly. And the difference is, what I notice is the hot rod cars that everybody hears on Westboro now that have modified mufflers, we don't hear those on James because they have to slow down because of the traffic calming. But once they hit across Robertson to go on Westboro, we hear all that noise and carrying on. So I agree that that needs to be closer. And in fact, I think you may need to look at one other traffic cushion along here once you get a real feel for the traffic. And then the other thing I put in the chat, so we have a lot of people that come through our neighborhood that don't live here. They're getting from Centennial to Charlotte Pike and going Robertson, just easy peasy ways to get to where they can't get because the traffic's bad. So if you could look at putting those, whatever you called them, the posts in between, that would stop a lot of this traffic that comes in. We have a lot of industrial traffic, lawn guys, dump trucks, everything. And I see them every day on James. They straddle the speed bumps. And so sometimes you'll have a car coming, and we have blind curves on James too, like they do on Westboro. And car will be coming, and there's some truck straddling the speed cushions. In fact, my plan is to go back and ask, they had said in a year NDOT would look at what was going on with James, and I'm about to ask them to look at some of these issues. So just up front for Westboro, you probably need to really look at the traffic, not just take all these numbers and see what they do, so that you can adjust these traffic cushions, the cushions, and also look at stopping that straddling from these trucks that come through.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Can I add one thing off of what Elaine said?
Yes.
Yes,
I think
please.
I think she made a really good point about a lot of people not being from the neighborhood coming in and out. There's also a lot of people in the neighborhood who utilize the public transportation who are walking every day to and from, and I watch them out the window, and I, just to emphasize the danger of general walking day to day. And I just want people to consider the fact that our neighborhood's still growing. Every other day, there's another house going down and two more going up. There's the plans for the marina that are going to move forward shortly, and it's just going to increase the traffic. And this is sort of an opportunity to address it now, and that opportunity might not find itself again. So I just want people to also maybe keep that idea in mind as well.
And just to add to that one more thing, whether it means anything or not, as far as the growth, the Nations, which we get a lot of traffic from the Nations, and if you proceed from Westboro down James, it becomes 63rd to Centennial, and they're looking at doing a major rezoning in that area that will bring a lot more growth, that will use our neighborhood streets as they do now. And I'm not criticizing that because that's the only way a lot of them can get out. It's the easiest way to get to Charlotte Pike, but we have to safeguard ourselves when we have ditches on the side of the road and no sidewalks, and we're not getting sidewalks. I don't care what whoever tells you you are, we're not.
Yeah, that's 100% right.
Okay. Well, seeing no more questions, I don't think I'm going to move on in here. But I'm hearing some positive feedback about this plan, and I think we have what we do after this is we do a more detailed field work to specifically lay out where these would go, measure against driveways and that sort of thing, measure the grade on the street to make sure we can place a device there, and then we put a very detailed plan together so that it's something that a contractor could install, but also you as the residents on the street can review and see where exactly the devices would be installed. So I'm going to go into our program flowchart so we can talk about where we are in the program and what our expectations are for Westboro. But like I said at the beginning, it starts with an application and residents apply. Then we do our data collection, and the street was selected, and we're doing our neighborhood meeting where we're presenting our concept plan, getting some feedback on that, which I've taken a lot of notes on. And then we go into our detailed design that I was just talking about to put more information on the plan, addresses. It'll be several sheets instead of just one, so that you can really see where the device goes and measurements and distances and so forth. And then what typically happens is we move into the online balloting for the project. So the design takes a couple of months for us to get that all worked out, and then we would move into the balloting, which I have some slides specific to address the details of that. But essentially, if the project is supported by 66% of the votes, then it moves forward into the construction. And then it takes some time. We're working on closing that or shortening that time frame to get projects installed faster. But right now we're around 8 to 10 months to get installed after the ballot closes, because NDOT doesn't necessarily order the materials to be installed for a specific project until we know that it's moving forward. Now you'll see here to the left, this second neighborhood meeting if needed. We're always open to, more meeting, especially if the plan, the concept shown was really off the mark from what the community was looking for. Then we may need to have a second meeting, or if we didn't feel like we had very good turnout, we may need to have a second meeting. So those reasons, and we'll come back to this towards the end because I want to get a little bit of consensus from everyone if we want to have another meeting or move forward with the ballot. But just mull that over as we go on here. So the balloting process is handled with an online form and similar to the postcards you received notifying you of the meeting. You'll get a postcard about voting, and it has a QR code that takes you to the online ballot. There are unique IDs on the ballot, which help on each ballot postcard, which helps us make sure we don't have duplicate votes and so forth. And then that voting period is open for 6 weeks. And so the date that it closes is on the postcard, so you know when you get it, how long you have to vote. And then you also, after that, can start following up online. We post the results online, not individual votes, of course, but just the percent totals of in favor or against and whether it passed. And so respondents can vote yes or no on the project. Also at the on the online ballot, there's a link to take you to the plans. So anyone that receives their postcard, they can see the design plan posted online. So you can see what you're voting on, even if you weren't able to make this meeting or know anything about the project yet. And so that is information there. And then you probably want to know who is eligible to vote. And that these properties are highlighted in yellow. So it's residential properties, churches, and schools that have properties that abut the right of way of the street that we're working on. Then there's owners that have multiple properties. They still just get one vote, and then we remove vacant properties. Those are ineligible, and businesses are ineligible. But if at any point during the time that you know the ballot is open and you believe you should have gotten a card, please don't hesitate to reach out to NDOT. We do our best to make sure we get these postcards out. Sometimes they may be lost in the mail. You know, you get your postcard, talk to your neighbor, make sure they got theirs. If they didn't, have them reach out so that we can help, because we want everyone to have the opportunity to know about the project and vote on the project. Right. And then, like I said, I have my email address posted here. NDOT's traffic calming email address is here. And we also have an Engage Nashville page that you can reach with this QR code. But essentially, we'll house information about this project. We can post the plans there, but it's a place where we can also receive some feedback. Many of you or some of your neighbors have already provided some input about the experience they're having on the streets and problem areas, like I said earlier. So this is just a great tool, resource specific about this project on Westboro. And then this QR code and web address is trafficcalming.nashville.gov. That's all things traffic calming that NDOT does. So our toolbox is there. We post these meeting recordings there on a YouTube channel, our manual on, how the program is run. The results of ballots are posted there. The plans are posted there. So it's just a great place to find information about the traffic calming program. I think that's my last slide. And so I just want to scroll back to our program flow chart to see if we can get some consensus on whether you all want to see the really detailed plan, or if you'd like to move forward straight into the ballots in about 2 months when the plan would be ready. We would then send those ballots. And what we do when we do that is we'll let the applicant contact that we have know that those ballots are coming. So if you have neighborhood communication forum that you use. You can share that information. We also let the council member know when that's coming. So we want you to be able to know when to look out for those, and the plans are posted prior to the ballot being sent as well. All right. Just looking at the chats here. Yes, someone asks, when will the recording be available? It should be available next week, sometime. It might take about a week to get that done, get that posted. I'm seeing a lot of, we're happy with the proposal and pretty good level of consensus. But yeah, I think we can definitely place the cushion closer to Robertson, as close as we can get it without interfering with driveways. That will be our goal.
Amy, sorry to interrupt, but
Mhm.
I had a question in the chat that I wanted to
yeah.
make sure that you got to.
I may have missed it. Thank you.
The question I had was, if the vote fails, does
Oh.
that mean the project is abandoned, or do you come back with new ideas? I just want to make sure that we're
Mhm.
all aware of like what the stakes are when it comes to voting.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. I glanced and I saw it and I meant to address it. And we always try to address that. If the vote fails, we will retool the plan. And meaning the vote is really specifically about the vertical measures. If we have a plan that's just radar feedback signs and striping or something, it actually doesn't get voted on, because we're specifically wanting people to vote about vertical measures. So if it fails, meaning that we have less than 66% of the votes, then we would retool the plan. It would probably incorporate more radar feedback signs, not as many as the cushions are, because we just don't typically place the radar feedback signs that close together. And if there's some additional striping, which I'm not sure that there would be on this narrow street, but yes, it's not completely abandoned, but that means that the vertical measures would not be installed. But we would try to do something to reduce the speeding.
And then, sorry, I have one more follow-up.
Yeah.
So let's say the vote did fail and then we didn't get the vertical cushions or whatever they're called in. Are there any other options for Westboro besides the speed devices? Like, it sounds kind of like we wouldn't be able to do the striping or the narrowing. So I just want to,
Right.
so that would
Right.
kind of be like all we would get.
Most likely. I haven't, done a total deep dive on like the width across the whole length of the street, but I think it's pretty consistent. And we don't typically narrow, put edge lines on a street that is already 22 feet. But if it's a little wider than that, we could add edge lines or something. So we would look and try to incorporate what we can. And then there's, the reapply. But I don't think that would be, you wouldn't be able to do that for a few years. And then would need to be selected again. So
That's really helpful. Thank you. I just wanted to
Mhm.
make sure that everybody kind of knew what our options were, and kind
Yeah.
of that we wouldn't really get a lot of, bites at the apple here. We really have one
That's
kind of
right.
shot, it seems like, and then we wouldn't have anything for a couple of years. Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you so much. It sounds like a
Yes,
great
yes.
plan already.
Great. I'm
I
glad
think
to
we've
hear
gotten a lot of positive
feedback.
stuff, so thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for your input. I think it sounds like we want to move forward with the ballot. I'm not seeing anyone or hearing anyone think that we need to have another meeting, which it does add a little bit more time. Just the scheduling of the meeting and so forth just adds a little bit more time. I think we've gotten some good positive feedback on what we've shown, and we're gonna work on just the full design of the plan, and we'll try to see if we can either add another cushion closer, move the cushion closer to Robertson and potentially add another one. I'm also going to look into the vegetation question, I believe, that was brought up about near the church. So we're going to look into that as well. Is there anything I
Amy?
missed? Yes. Oh,
It's Elaine again. I haven't put my hand up. Okay, so you didn't mention that you would look at putting those posts or something in the center.
In the post. Yes, and the post in the center.
And then if you do this redesign and you don't have a second neighborhood meeting, is there a way to get the design out to the people who live on the street so they can look at it and look at it in reference to where their homes are, their driveways, et cetera?
Yes, it would be posted online, so it would be kind of a, you know, I don't know how we would communicate that to them, but when the design is ready, it does get posted on the website. But then the ballots do go pretty soon after. We can always communicate with your council member to point people to that if needed. That Engage Nashville page is a place where we would post the plans temporarily before the ballot is open. The Engage Nashville page, we typically close it after the balloting begins, because the purpose of that page is to get feedback to inform the plan. So that's that information. But I'm trying to think about how we can share the plan in advance of the ballot, because I think that's what your question is can we get that out so that people have some input on the plan before it goes to.
Well, perhaps if you get it to our council member Horton, he
Mhm.
has a means to get with our Charlotte Robertson Neighborhood Association, who
Mhm.
can then potentially get it to the people who live on Westboro. So that could work that way.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Then I'll just say that the sort of issue is, like, from this meeting, we know what we're doing. You know, we can either say we're going to ballot or not. I don't like to leave like gray area between, like, hey, we've posted this plan now. When do the ballots happen, I guess, but we can work through that. And then certainly, like I said before about the balloting, when you receive your ballot, talk to your neighbors, make sure that they got theirs, so that and they see it and vote right away. Don't wait, because it may be open for 6 weeks, but those 6 weeks can fly by, and you don't want to forget to vote. So, you know, talk to your neighbors and make sure that they have that opportunity. And if they don't receive their postcard or lost it, reach out to NDOT with this email address, or contact me, and we can help out. So we're gonna look at the posts, adding some posts to the center lines to help keep those larger vehicles from veering off and not being impacted by the cushions. We're gonna look at the additional things at the north end of the street, and then this is a great question I'm seeing. Is the approval number 66% of the votes for approval, or 66% of all eligible voters, even if they don't vote? The answer is it's the 66% of the votes, similar to election. If you don't vote, it doesn't count against you, because as we would love to have 100% voter turnout, or anything close to that, it doesn't really happen, but we really want people to vote. But it's based on the number of votes received, not the number of eligible voters. And the postcards for the ballots go to the property owners of the property. Okay, so I will communicate with your council member about the plan when it's ready, and just confirm with him that he's comfortable with us, sharing that information, and then shortly after going ahead with the ballots, and then we won't have a second meeting. So does that sound good, Elaine? We'll see if we can get him to share it or direct people to where it's posted online, and then give it a little bit of time to get some quick feedback, and then we'll move forward with doing the vote.
The reason I suggest that is when we went through ours, we actually had a second meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And even as a result of that, there were still some changes made to the plan based on what additional feedback. So that's the only reason I bring that up.
Yeah, and we're totally fine with having a second meeting. It's just some neighborhoods prefer to move forward and do that. So I think, and this has been a great turnout for traffic calming meeting, I'll say. It is a long street though. All right. Is there anything else? I appreciate everyone's participation and listening and giving us some feedback. I'm going to copy this chat box after the meeting ends so that I have all the comments as well, in case I missed anything. So I appreciate it. In the recording.